everyone. My name's Jody Fomer. I'm an office manager here at Kruse Law Firm, and today with me I have owner and senior managing partner Mike Kruse. We are today going to talk about virtual trials during the COVID-19 pandemic. How can we do virtual trials? Should we? Are they going to be successful? And that is the area we're going to cover. So today, Mike, what are your thoughts on conducting a virtual trial, be it in Ontario court, Superior Court, whatever the case may be? Are you for conducting a virtual trial or against?
Wow, what a controversial topic to start off with today, Jody. I don't know if we're going to agree to disagree on this, but I'll tell you, I take a little bit of a contrarian position about this because what happened during COVID was obviously they were concerned about safety. And there's people, even making the courts completely safe, there's people with comorbidity conditions that still feel fearful about going into the courtroom.
True.
So we are able, the courts, both at the Ontario Court of Justice level and Superior Court of Justice level, they announced that virtual trials are available if an accused will consent to them.
Okay.
Now bear this in mind. Under our charter, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and under the common law, you have the right to confront your accuser in person. So in other words, you have an absolute right to
In person.
to face that person.
Yeah.
That's what we do in court, I'll tell you.
Get you, my pretty, and your little dog,
Yeah.
too.
So in other words, you hire a lawyer, that lawyer sits 20, 30 feet from the complainant on say a sexual assault trial, cross-examines them, examines their demeanor, how they're coming across, timing, putting documents in front of them, confronting them and challenging them. That's the traditional way of cross-examination in person. The judge is right there and gets to see the person.
I like that way.
Yeah, gets to see their demeanor. This is interesting. Now, so should a client agree to a virtual trial? So first of all, there have been some virtual trials take place in the province. Now, I haven't seen the trial exactly, so I didn't see how it go. I heard they went anecdotally for some other lawyers. First of all, I heard they went pretty well.
Okay.
Now, I'm a believer that they can work. Now, I'll tell you why. It's from my experience. Now, I have done quite a few preliminary hearings, which is a evidentiary hearing before the trial where it's a screening function to determine if there's enough evidence, right?
Right.
Now, I've done them with witnesses from across the province who are sitting in another courthouse, and I have found it little to no difference.
And
effective. I could see them completely. They were answering my questions. I could put documents.
Can you get as crotchety as you normally would when you're cross-examining someone on the witness mic by doing it that way?
Interesting question, because sometimes I'm a bit of a lawyer. Sometimes some judges put up with this and some don't.
Sometimes he's nasty.
I sometimes like to wander towards the witness a little bit, which can create some tension.
Yes.
And sometimes I stay quietly.
You're scary.
I'm not. I try and be polite, but you try and be clever with the witness. So you're trying to, frankly, rattle the witness a bit and get their demeanor off, get them with inconsistency and probability.
Get them a little confused.
Right. And that's our job as a lawyer, to get the truth, actually, is what we're trying to get at in court, because not everyone's telling the truth. People think someone accused is always guilty. They're not always guilty. They're presumed innocent. So I actually found it worked pretty well on the Zoom technology. I've also done many trials, when we have a young person who's the complainant of a sexual assault, if they're under a certain age, they are allowed to testify remotely in another room with a care worker.
Behind a screen or...
No, I'm not talking about screens. Screens are a different thing.
Okay.
This is in a remote room where there's a video feed. The judge and I are in a room. The Crown are in the same courtroom. The person's in a separate room on video.
And it works fine.
It works fine. In fact, I find when young victims of sexual assault are on the witness stand, that's the humiliating experience in court. They clam up and they can't testify, especially very young people, like 6, 7, 8 years old.
So in that situation, you find it's better in that situation.
When it's a
young victim.
For both the lawyer asking the questions.
Witness.
And the young witness, because I find them more forthcoming. If they're telling the truth comes out. If they're making it up, which occasionally happens, that we get that out of them. What happens, and the other negative thing, when a victim who's that young testifies in court, I find many of them can't even say anything and the case gets thrown out. So that's a good thing that cases proceed, because accused who should be convicted get convicted. Accused who shouldn't get convicted because they're so inconsistent. So my view of virtual trials. Now, I don't want to be the guinea pig.
I just don't feel that a lawyer can be as effective virtually when they're cross-examining someone.
There's a lot of, I bet you the majority of the criminal bar is going to say the same thing.
I feel that okay, oh, you're coming at me, cross-examining me through, a screen, a video screen, oh, you're not so scary now, big guy. I think that the in-person cross-examination of whether it's a complainant or a witness, key witness, officers, whatever the case may be, so much more effective to do it in person. But although that said, obviously we have to move along with the times, and if they choose to do virtual trials, we'll have to go with that and just get a big, scarier screen or something.
Well, bear in mind, no one will ever have to agree to a virtual trial.
Let's say, for example, your client obviously wants his trial in person, Mike, and but the lawyer, let's say, is, say they're, say the pandemic continues, and say the lawyer's 80 or 81, and although safe in the courtroom, has some concerns, so doesn't want to do the guy's trial in person, prefers to do it virtually.
Well, if the client's up for that and the lawyer's up for that, that's a great thing.
I know, but what happens, I wonder, I guess the lawyer would have to say, well, I'm not doing it. I don't feel safe in the courtroom. And you're going to have to get yourself another lawyer then.
Well, that's true. That could happen for sure. But
Yeah.
then it's up to the client. Now, I can say this. Those are my thoughts that it can work. I bet you 80% of the bar is going to disagree with me.
And what happens, sorry to interrupt, but what happens if you want to give your witness a transcript from a preliminary hearing and you can't hand it to them virtually?
Well, there's a way to do that. There's programs now where we can share, screen sharing.
Okay.
There's ways and means of doing that, and documents. There's a new program coming out. You can do that on Zoom. There's a program called Case Lines that we're going to use where there can document sharing, so we're multiple parties. That's going to come to the criminal system likely, this Case Lines program, where I can share multiple documents simultaneously with a judge, the witness, the Crown. I can even have private notes that I make on mine that are not seen by them that I can use to cross-examine. So it could work beautifully. The counter argument that most of the criminal bar has against it, I think, is this. How can the judge, and I'll have a counter for this, how can the judge properly examine the witness's demeanor on Zoom in a way? Well, I think it's perfect. Let me finish on that one, Jody. I know you want to jump in. But let me finish on that one. I find the demeanor perfect on Zoom. I'll tell you why. Because normally judges are taking their notes.
So they're not.
And the witness is right here. They're not even looking at the witness during the trial.
Okay, fair enough.
So there's all sorts of positives. I get the negatives. I'll tell you another negative. The witness could have off to the side someone feeding them answers quietly. They could do that.
Virtually.
Or just whispering or something, or
Virtually.
putting up a note.
If we were to do it virtually.
Yeah. They could have crib notes, or they could have cheat notes in front of
So
them.
that to me is a disadvantage.
Right. But you can tell if someone's looking down at notes.
Well, you might be really good you might be a good cheater. So
Well,
it is a controversial subject, no doubt. I believe in the old school.
You're on the old school, confront them in person, and you think the big bad wolf's better in person than virtually, right?
Because I feel like you lose part of it. Like even if you're watching a TV show or someone's really nervous, or say they have a knee tapping, not that you would see that in the witness booth, but something goes on like that, I feel like, I guess, we won't know until it happens with a virtual trial. But I feel like you can lose something with not being in person, and you're just not right there, and like they can, smell your breath, they can see, perspire, and ready for the kill, right?
That's what a lot of the criminal bar think. But you know what I think another beautiful thing about virtual trials? I can wear my suit with my tie, maybe just a cardboard cutout thing, and my track pants below. or shorts or something. I don't know.
So true,
not worry
so
about
true.
just more relaxed. But
It would
you know,
take you
this
less
is
time to get ready.
this is a controversy that's going to play out. I'd love to actually watch one so I
Yeah.
can make an opinion.
I think that would be beneficial.
I guess I'm going by my experience with young witnesses and doing preliminary hearings, which are not trials. At a preliminary hearing, you're not judging credibility. It's just words on a page, right?
But having said that too, I'll just rewind for 1 second. With regard to when someone has a preliminary hearing and you as a lawyer typically will obtain the transcripts from those proceedings and then often, if not always, use those transcripts in cross-examining that same witness at the trial.
Yes.
And then you hand it to them. And I know you say that there's going to be something we can upload that stuff or whatever, but it's much different having that shaking piece of paper handed to you or shoved in your face. Like, I think it's just going to lose some of the effects, like that type of stuff. Maybe not the overall trial and the questions and how it proceeds, doing it virtually, but those little tiny effective things that you get to do in person that will intimidate the witness, you know? So those things I always love to see. And
No, absolutely. If you watch an experienced cross-examined lawyer, they have little techniques like that they use,
It's the best.
which may not come across on video as well. So that's a valid
and
point.
you're going to miss that because that's what you do.
Waive the transfer. You know, it's
You're
funny.
like, right here on page 1188, Your Honor.
No, there's an element of truth that. Well, I'm still leaning towards virtual trials may work. I'm not going to recommend it to clients until I see it in action working across the province.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something you wouldn't want to test out just like willy-nilly at your very, set a trial date and your first one is like cold, going in cold.
Absolutely, Jody. So no, this was an interesting topic, and I love it when you and I disagree because it makes for a very interesting.
That's on a daily
podcast.
basis.
So, anyways, great chatting with you as always, Jody.
Yes, thanks for joining, everyone.
Yes, and thanks for joining everyone. And we really had a wonderful time doing these podcasts, and I hope you watch the whole series. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.
I really hope you enjoyed our podcast. We are absolutely committed to bringing you informative and interesting criminal and DUI content. If you're watching this on YouTube, I ask and encourage you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. If you happen to be an audio listener, please follow us and stay tuned for more great content. If you've been charged with a criminal offense or a DUI in Ontario, please call us or reach out to us online with the contact form found at kruselaw.ca.